Tony, you should be moderating this. What am I doing up here? See, we have two people now in the second row. You guys both missed the announcement that I just made about it's going to be interactive, so move up. So if your ears were burning, then the second row is progress. Now we just need any individuals who may be in the fifth row to consider moving. You can still like make an exit. It's not like you're, foregoing your midterm exit rights. It's great. It's great. But don't you think now that the people in the third row that are playing solitaire on their laptops are starting to feel a little bit guilty about being so far back? Exactly. It's just like mobile versus wireline, right? Being late to wireline means you could jump into mobile. Just so you know, sir, they just walked in. Those chairs, there's the health department thought there might be plutonium embedded in them. The ones farther back, and if you move up, then it turns out that they're a lot safer.
You use all the tactics, Joe.
Exactly. Yeah. No, it's just I don't want you to not be able to sleep at night because the glow from your own body is keeping you awake, so that's perfect. You'd think they would make chairs without plutonium in today's, world of advanced technology. Okay, I think we can start as soon as the people in the third row move up. Otherwise, they're just wasting everyone else's time.
Vance.
Thank you so much.
Yeah,
you were the best.
I think these cameras need to go to the core album right away. So connect on time.
What are you saying? You saying that certain individuals don't end on time?
No, just that we need the cameras. No, you're perfect.
All right, shall we? I think we're in good shape. So this is the Global Carrier Outlook session. I am not John Tanner, which is listed in your program. I'm a pinch hitter for the last second. This is, you've heard of on-demand computing. This is called on-demand moderation. Mm-hmm. We hope to cover a bunch of topics. And maybe by way of intro, who was at the telegeography session on Sunday? Who's ever been to a telegeography session? Okay, it's the same presentation year after year. I mean, they're great, but it's the same presentation, right? That doesn't change from, revenue has been flat, but now all of a sudden it's growing exponentially. The data they present basically show that, yes, there's traffic growth, yes, there's lit capacity growth, yes, there's unlit capacity growth, but fundamentally there are challenges as telcos and cellcos seek new revenue opportunities and models and partnerships and relationships, which ties in pretty well with the whole theme of the conference around capacity and capability and collaboration. So we have two leaders in the industry that we're fortunate to have here today, Andrew Kwok and Jacky Kwok, and I'm going to let them introduce themselves in a second, but I want to just cover some of the format for this, which is I have some prepared questions, but in addition to that, what we're going to do is really open it up to the audience. You're here, obviously, because you have some set of things that you're interested in, and so because this is an executive insight roundtable, the whole point is that it's not presentations one way, half duplex out or, simplex out. It's just, broadcast mode. It's really intended to be full duplex communications. So with that, Andrew, let me start with you, maybe a little bit about you and your company.
Okay, so aloha. By the way, we all come from Hong Kong. It's only coincidence. And we all have the same last name, Kwok. But we are not brothers, I assume, huh?
And I've been to Hong Kong, and my middle name is Kwok, but we're not related either. That's right. Okay,
so I'm from Hutchison, from the Hutchison Group. So my company is Hutchison Telecom Hong Kong, and in which the subsidiary is called Hutchison Global Communication. So Hutchison is a conglomerate in Hong Kong where we operate 5 main branch of businesses. One of the branches is telecommunication, in which up to this moment, we have already invested around 30 billion US into the 3G operation around the world. And other than that, we have invested 2G and also analog in the past. Adding to that, we own the biggest fiber network in Hong Kong. And other than that, I have the responsibility of the international fixed line business. We are now in Asia. After our Asia expansion in this past year, we are now also extend our network coverage to US and also EMEA region. We are also specify in our network extension into something called GMS, in which is named as Greater Mekong Sub-region, including Vietnam, Cambodia, and all these places, which is the developing market. Other than the international business I handle, except the local mobile operation, the 13 mobile operation around the world we have, I also handle the carrier business in my hometown in Hong Kong, which include the mobile carrier and also the fixed line carrier, international carrier, and also, obviously, the most interesting piece is the OTT player, and also what we call the Telco 2.0. Thank you.
So you're busy.
One salary.
Okay, Jacky?
Right. Good morning. My name is Jacky Kwok. I'm from CITIC Telecom International. You may not familiar with the name. It stands for China International Trust and Investment Company. It's the largest state-owned enterprise in mainland China. It was formed in the early 80s as the window company to do business with the rest of the world. So when China opening up, CITIC Telecom is a 100% owned subsidiary of this big CITIC group. CITIC group in China covers about 75 different industries, from building roads and bridges to special steel manufacturing. So we are the flagship representing the group doing telecom business. Just like any other global carriers, we focus on 3 main areas: the voice wholesale, the mobile value-added services, and also the data services.
So given that you've got, both of you, broad range of services, I guess the first question would be, across the different businesses, what looks great right now, and what is it that's keeping you awake that you just wish, were growing faster or declining more slowly, or any combination of the above? Sure.
Okay, so thanks, Joe, for the first question. I think other than the question, obviously, as Joe has mentioned, we would like to have some interaction and all that. So my humble opinion is that in these past years, I've been in the industry for 20-something years, mainly focused in the international. So when I take a look at the evolution from generation to generation, I think it's very similar that in every generation, you will see a very optimistic kind of situation, but also comes along with a very dangerous or risky or pessimistic kind of feeling. So this is life, I think.
It's the Chinese character for opportunity, right?
Yes, gay is dangerous, but with opportunity. So you are Chinese, is it?
I told you, my middle name is Kwok.
Okay, so so why I'm saying so, this also applies nowadays. When I take a look at the information that I have, actually, my team gave me a whole stack of information for our last year-end meeting. So we try to search for the number, other than in our experience, our understanding, what the number shows. Okay, so we see that obviously the dangerous piece is that in the international arena, the capacity business is still having a big turmoil. Overbuild, the price drop, CAGR is close to 30%. In some areas, it's even 50%. But having said that, we also see that the demand of capacity is keep on growing with a CAGR of close to 60% requirement. So as such, you may say that, okay, hey, it's not a dangerous situation, or this is not that bad. because you got a bigger demand of capacity, but your price drop in some routes has already been a little bit stabilized. It is 20% or even 20% below, just like in the year before 2011 compared with 2012. We see some area, actually, price drop has stopped at around 15% to 20% at the most. So the pipe is getting bigger, so we don't need to worry about that. But I think there's two items that you need to take a look at. It is still alarming. The first one is the salary didn't drop. Okay, that means while your price is dropping like that, however, the cost of your operation is still not in line with the job. For example, the maintenance of a submarine cable system, the maintenance of your network. Obviously, thanks for the China manufacturer, the equipment company started with an H, in which I don't want to voice it out in US because of all the sensitivities. Okay. So the equipment price dropped, but having said that, your operational cost is not really dropping a lot. When was the time that you cut your staff salary by 30%? I don't think so. Okay. So other than that, when you take a look at the submarine cable construction cost, I try to recap is that in the year 2002, we are talking about around, it is our own estimation, $36 per mat of construction cost for the submarine cable system. Up to 2011, we didn't calculate the 2012 yet. Up to 2011, we're talking about $17 per mat of a submarine cable construction cost. It dropped by 35%. Okay. However, we're talking about 10 years already. So the price drop in these past 10 years, obviously, is more than 35%. So as such, I think in the capacity arena, we have to be pretty careful about that. While all the cable system is building up, a lot of new players coming in. So this is one sector that I think is a global situation that we have to be aware of. So try not to drag it along, but the others are what we call the risk or whatsoever, but it can become an opportunity. The Telco 2.0. So in the past, of course, I would love to see that if there's any people from industrial colleagues here, from Google's, from Facebook, or from Amazon. Okay. This bigger Telco 2.0 is actually going into the infrastructure space. So they are putting in, just like Facebook, I was told, 1 billion infrastructure. So other than that, they start to launch the voice on the Facebook recently, started with Canada. Amazon, 245 million, big data center and all this. Google's involved in the submarine cable system already. So this is all the things that we need to take a look. Instead of a pure hostile kind of situation between the traditional carrier and the new player, I think we need to find a way to cooperate. Saying so is easy, I understand. But however, there are ways. So later on, I think we'll talk in more details.
Yeah, let's maybe move to Jacky for the same question as to what's doing great and what do you see as being an issue, and then I think you can't have a session at an event like this and not cover the over-the-top relationship. So we'll do that next.
Right. Since we are a very Asian-centric carrier with the backings of China, we have been enjoying quite some growth in the past 7 to 8 years because the economy of China is booming very much, and the amount of voice traffic generating in and out of China has been increased by 2-3 folds, I think, in the past 10 years. There are consequences associated with the exponential growth of traffic coming in and out of China. Number one, it draws a lot of competition into the same space as the international carrier for the China. Price has been dropping crazily. Last year, January last year, the operator in China decided to raise the termination charges for voice into China by 50%. It used to be a 1 US cents per minute. It becomes 1.5 US cents per minute. Under the price increase scenario, we are experiencing a lot of people trying to find alternative going into China. Some people call them gray routes, using Simbox or other alternative VoIP technology that took away some of the traffic from it. I haven't yet to mention about the OTT inferences into that portion of the game. Second, we are also carrying the messaging, which is the mobile SMS as a carrier for China. The amount of SMS has been growing very solidly, again, for the past 8 to 10 years. Again, from the last year, we start seeing some, the trend has been plateaued out on the messaging side of it. That has a lot to do with the OTT substitute. We call them alternative messaging channel. For the data scenario, I agree with Andrew's comment. Really, the infrastructure cost does not match with the market drop, the rate in which the retail pricing drop in association with your operating and also construction cost. So it's also threatening our revenue model and our profitability over the past years. I think that's the current situation right now.
So maybe to feed off that for a second, I mean, you know, SMS has traditionally been profitable for telcos, and you'd have to say, well, whenever you have, from a pure economic theory perspective, something that's profitable, that drives new entrants, that drives down the
Yes.
Price to whatever marginal cost is, which in the case of network services typically is zero, right, based on all the theories about Ramsey pricing and everything else. But all that said, SMS has one key advantage, and that key advantage is interoperability, right? I don't need to worry about that I'm on BlackBerry Messenger and you're not. We can always SMS each other no matter where we are in the world. Which then brings up the obvious question, which is a lot of companies in other domains, for example, social networking, say, have come up with sort of the open fill-in-the-blank approach, right, which attempts to cobble together sort of an open federation to enable that. So, you know, is that a threat that someone does that from the, you know, over-the-top perspective and creates interoperability? Or do you think that, you know, right now, all of the over-the-top players seem to be working from the same playbook? It's no matter where they started from, it's okay, we need to control the browser. So you have, you know, Safari or Internet Explorer or Chrome. We need to have that available on mobile devices. So you've got the same thing. We need to be able to have, you know, an application store that ties into that. We need to have an ecosystem. We need to have our social networking services, whether it's, you know, Facebook or Google+. So they're all doing the same thing. You know, what does that mean ultimately for, is there some role for carriers to not just be transport, but to act as intermediaries and, you know, sort of cloud exchanges in the sense of that? Or, you know, what's the strategy? As you pointed out earlier, we've got to find a way to work together, you know, the carriers and the over-the-top players. Do you have a sense of what that way is, and is there something you're pursuing?
Okay, Joe, I think you raised up a very good question and a big question. Yeah. So
it was a long question.
yes, I tried to narrow down. I think I'll answer in two aspects. The first aspect is what is the characteristic and how it will evolve for the OTT player. The second one is if the carrier, I mean so-called traditional carrier, would like to get a piece from it, what is the way? Okay, I try to, obviously it's not very precise, but I try to narrow down into these two items. The first one is talking about the characteristic and everything. I think why they act the same. Why they act the same, I think it's because of the nature of the industry and also the different capability and contribution from different players, including the OTT, Telco 2.0, or the traditional carrier. If you take a look at the characteristic, basically I regard the OTT, other than on getting the telecom revenue, basically they are creating a community business instead of pure telecom revenue. So you take a look at the past, we also involved, Hutchison also involved in the Skype sale to eBay, because before they sell public information, we already invested in Skype already, a small amount. Okay. But having said that, we take a look at those investments as a kind of community service investment instead of pure telecom investment. The burden of telecom infrastructure is not on top of them, so there are some reasons for that. But if you take a look at the traditional carrier, that is something that we hold on hand that create an opportunity. What are those? I still remember at in one of the Hutchison executive group dinner, the deputy managing director, Susan Chow, very famous lady in Asia, she was talking with me and asked, Andrew, what is the identity of people in the future that makes a difference and important? Is it a passport number, ID card number, or whatsoever? I told her my answer is your name and also your mobile number. You keep these two tightly in your hand. Don't let anyone use it, and you are safe. So why I'm talking about this, if you take a look at the carrier and also the OTT, what we have and what they don't have are four things, which also introduce an opportunity in the future for us to participate. The first one is a well-recognized identities, which is your mobile number or your device number in the future. Because it is all interconnected, no matter with the traditional carrier, or in the future, you can also plug it into the OTT player. Why I'm saying so is that just like a lot of OTT website, you go there, they always ask you, can you put down your mobile number? You can put down a real mobile number. You can put down a made-up mobile number. The OTT player cannot identify. You put down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Fine, they take it. However, this number is formally registered in the traditional carrier platform, and other than that, within the ITU specification of numbering range. This is formal and recognized around the world. This is the first one. I'll be quicker, Joe. Second one, we have locational-based information. When you take an IP address in the OTT environment, either from the AP NIC or whatever, the OTT player, they will not really know that where they are. Knowing where you are is a very important commercial information. As such, a lot of locational, for example, Google's map and all this kind of stuff, you search in the App Store, you have tons of this kind of locational information that you can tap on. Locational information is in our hand. Payment relationship between ourselves and the customer is there. Suddenly, an application provider launches a service. Are you very comfortable in putting your financial information there for them to charge or whatsoever? I trust a carrier, an operator, more than an application provider. The fourth one is on the network side, the network development. We control the network development. Theoretically, we should be able to give a higher quality to a friendly application provider. I'm not talking about cartel or discrimination, because in Hong Kong, the anti-competition law will be effective in June, so I don't want to get into jail. So, but having said that, we have the network development control. So those are the things that we have on hand that allow us to participate. When you're investing $100, you said, oh, the margin is too low or whatsoever. But actually, we have to track where is the money went to. We have to participate. My last sentence for this is, although we have this kind of capability, the very famous net neutrality act adopted in the US and started to have a very big discussion. Joe must know much more than I do because he's in the US. That was in the year 2010, December, FCC announcement on the net neutrality. That advise you not to discriminate or whatsoever. Those kind of things is the biggest topic, which is stopping the traditional carrier in pushing forward to have even a closer relationship with the OTT player.
Well, you're starting to see even, questions about not just net neutrality, but search neutrality, right? So the whole question around, can you put your search results ahead of, the competition if you're an integrated provider that's got the over-the-top service, which is the actual service, and then the core service, which is search and advertising. So, all right, comments, Jacky, on your theory about strategy relative to over-the-top players?
Right. Perhaps before I gone into the strategy, I would like to share a real case that is happening in Hong Kong for the past 2 years. It's about the SMS usage. There are 6 mobile operators in Hong Kong serving a population of 8 million citizens in Hong Kong. The mobile penetration rate in Hong Kong currently is 120%. So everybody is carrying more than one SIM card or devices with them. CITIC being one of the inter-operator SMS carrier, so we are handling the SMS from one carrier to the other carriers. So we observe a year-on-year trend that the amount of SMS among just this carrier has been dropping by a scary level of 25% year-on-year. Where did all this messaging go? It went into a very popular smartphone application. I think I'm free to mention the name. It's called WhatsApp. WhatsApp is written by a European company with a very user-friendly interface. So we consider them the OTT player. On one side, we like this kind of a OTT player who has the capability to connect people. The amount of smartphone user has been increased by many times because there are incentives for the consumer to purchase themselves a smartphone and start enjoying texting for free and then using WhatsApp. I consider that to be the IT approach versus the telco approach. If you notice on a lot of the smartphone apps, these apps are built around people. So everything starts with pulling up the contacts. And then the program starts asking you, what would you like to do with that contact? But on the telco application or telco way of doing, you have to first decide whether you want to make a voice call or you want to send a text message or you wanted to do a video call. So this is very different context. So the IT camps is coming from a very user angle when they develop their application. But the telco side always going from the service category. You have to first decide whether or not you want to send a text or send a voice call. So in terms of the strategy, is there a role for us to be in working with this OTT player? There are very limited areas in which we can work with these players. But from what I'm trying to say is there are alternatives because we will not dump the SMS infrastructure. It will not be vanished overnight. Instead, we create something called application to phone SMS. We're trying to top up the decrease on person-to-person SMS by using application to phone. As Andrew mentioned about your mobile number represent an identity, SMS being a trusted channel to validate your identity. The reason why a lot of the OTT player ask you for your mobile phone number is in times if you wanted to retrieve your secret information, say your login password or something, it has to be done or delivered via a secure channel onto your phone number or your handset. So A2P, there are huge potential on the A2P SMS arena where it would allow people to develop a trusted channel through it. A lot of the banking industry likes to use SMS. If you're familiar with authentication, there's something called two-factor authentication, meaning one piece of information you hold, the other piece you receive differently every time. It is particularly popular for internet banking applications, where when times you log onto your internet banking, you will be receiving your second password on SMS. And also trade confirmations, if you have made a very big transaction on your stock account in your bank, they will give you trade confirmation via the secure SMS delivery channel. Some people call OTT a destructive technology. They even use the word destructive because it is relative. From one side of the game, consumer believe it's very constructive. From the telco or carrier side, it's considered to be destructive. But all in all, I think there are value contribution to these OTT applications because it attracts more people being connected on the network. And then there are a reason for it because a lot of the perhaps older generation, they very love to stick with their traditional technology. A lot of elderlies still carrying feature phones. They are not entering into the smartphone arena. But trust me, I see in the airport, on the street, a lot of the elderly, they're carrying smartphone today, and they are enjoying their iPads, doing FaceTime video conference. So, I mean, it really depends on which angle that you're looking into it. And then I think once we create that connected community, thanks to the OTT players, there will be opportunity in front of us to tackle or to address in the future.
Yeah, I think to your point, the notion around mobility, which you covered also, the fact that ultimately the mobile device isn't really an endpoint on a network, it's an extension of your body. So people, will go back for their mobile phone more often than they'll go back for their wallet, which is a distinction that will be meaningless shortly anyway, right, as your phone is your wallet. I'm going to change gears a little bit, but before I do, I thought I'd open it up to the audience for any questions. Yes? John?
Yeah, I was interested in your view on data services and to the extent that each of you has some investments on part of your company or your parent company in Australia, in other countries in the region, in Japan, India, Singapore, and so forth. What do you see as the drivers of enterprise data elsewhere in the region outside of the office?
I'm not sure that mic is on, so for the video, it's what do you see within your target markets around drivers for enterprise services, data services? Is that a question?
Sorry. Okay. So in our observation and survey in our services, one of the branches is our enterprise business. So we do see that, of course, cloud is coming up big time for enterprise. So it is forecasted till the year 2017, there will be namely $50 billion cloud revenue flowing around the whole world. So compared to nowadays, I think is at least several 100% of growth surrounding that. I think it's a sense from that owing to the globalization and everything. So you can't do business only in your hometown. So as such, you are spreading out. Singapore, Hong Kong, Japan is the main top in our commercial activities in Asia. Not to mention that obviously China is one big individual, Japan another one, and if you count India as Asia, part of Asia, obviously that is another one. So the activities has been spread out, so the cloud computing or cloud access becomes inevitably important. So, but having said that, we also see a trend is that the people are more and more differentiate into their own strategy, develop their own strategy. What is my private cloud and what is the public cloud situation. So as such, to answer your question is that while we're talking about cloud, there will be two revenue opportunity for the operator. One is the private cloud, in which you have to provide, namely at this moment, a very good MPLS network for them to ride on, so, or VPLS level. So while we're talking about, some people is using IPVPN, some people would like to use Ethernet, VPLS type, to cater for that. And when we're talking about the public cloud, of course, the enterprise market is searching for, several years later, 90% of the staff should not have any on-premises software. So this is a hope from the digital, I forgot what was the organization survey. So 90% of the staff should running around or working at home, working in the office, or striking a deal with their device. Okay, hopefully in the future it will not be a smart device, because we're talking about dumb device already. Okay, this is another big topic. We see that the enterprise practice will be accessing the cloud in a seamless way to get software, information, approval, and everything. So this is one piece of the very big opportunity. But however, it cannot be just covered by the layman terms cloud computing. There's a lot of ingredients, a lot of factors, ranging from the carrier and also in cooperating with the cloud operator and also the application developer. So to answer the question is that the enterprise market will use more and more cloud-related services. However, the private network will still remain as one piece of the important ingredients.
Jacky, do you want to add something?
Well, I think it's very well addressed by Andrew, but there are a couple comments to make. In fact, what is driving the enterprise data demand, my opinion, number one, is really customer or consumer expectation out of the enterprise. Today, it's more connected user onto the smartphone or smart devices community. Everything in the world becomes symmetrical or becomes simultaneous. Maybe not too long ago, 90% of our day, we are on receiving mode. We go home, sit down, switch on the TV, it's receiving mode, one-way communications. Today, we use our phone, it's all the apps or majority of the apps are interactive. They give us feedback immediately. So I think from the enterprise area, they needed to address their customer or consumer demand by offering similar end-user experience to it. I cannot find one single bank or consumer bank in Hong Kong who does not offer a smartphone application that allows you to perform transfer, make an inquiry of your account status, more importantly, your real-time stock trade, and then encourage a lot of activities out of it. And then it demands a lot of bandwidth or back-end infrastructure to incorporate that kind of a real-time communications. And then they have to be able to, I like to say, oversubscribe certain elements on their network to prepare for certain traffic surge or something. So it would drive the demands for enterprise, and then it is also associated with the cloud computing initiative. So that's the, I think that's what is driving it, because the consumer or the customer, the competition is driving them into that role. They become more bandwidth hungry on that side of it.
So you went to, I was going to cover cloud and Internet of Things next, so that was a good segue. If I could, just to do a follow-up question on that, and then you have a question, sir? Do you have a question? Okay. So just if I can do a follow-up on that topic. You know, Internet of Things, pervasive computing, everywhere, WARE, machine to machine, those terms kind of create different mental images. And I think for many people, you tend to think of something like wired light bulbs that can be turned on or turned off remotely, or sensors like temperature sensors around the house. But at the other extreme, it also sort of gets into the safe cities type of approach, where you have hundreds of thousands of video cameras deployed around a city, in some cases on moving vehicles like buses or the MTR or what have you. And you're generating mobile high bandwidth communications, and that's part of the mobility plus cloud Internet of Things architecture that includes then really high bandwidth sources, possibly going over LTE or LTE Advanced, going back to the cloud for archiving, image analysis, what have you. So, when you think about both extremes, on the one hand, the light bulb, on the other, which is fixed, on the other hand, the mobile ultra HD video camera, what does it all mean to network architecture in terms of the government space on the one hand, obviously the set of customers, also the consumer space where you've got applications now, obviously, like you're at work, I use an app to control my DVR, I can adjust my home lighting or thermostat, I can start the oven remotely after I've let the turkey defrost or what have you. So from a network engineering perspective, what do you see in terms of, is this just business as usual, it's just another set of applications riding over the same network? Are there important requirements driving, class of service and QoS, higher bandwidth? People talk about a change from the old days where it was the center out because you were distributing content, for example, from a few web servers like, eBay, Google, Baidu, whatever, out to billions of endpoints, and now it's billions of endpoints going into the cloud. So, asymmetric bandwidth may have to shift its asymmetry. From your perspective, what are you thinking about in terms of the evolution of your network architecture?
Okay, so Joe, I think our answer is that while we are both infrastructure-based in fixed, international, and also mobile, we do foresee that in this coming several years of time, the access will more shift to wireless. And the backbone will still remain in fixed. So this is on one hand a technological situation, because if you compare a fiber and you compare with the nowadays the latest LTE frequency, or even if you talk about, okay, don't talk about LTE, we're talking about ALTE, advanced LTE, in which is still talking about 1 gig of capacity in one cell site. And the cell sites become also extremely small because everyone is adopting the small cell site technology. As such, because of this, we do see that access will be more on wireless. However, the backbone and also the high definition application and all this will still remain in fixed. So this is our upcoming belief that when we do a design and engineer our network and put in the money. Having said that, add in one more point is, no matter you like it or not, Wi-Fi becomes an important factor.
Yeah, so I mean, you've got to do the Wi-Fi offload to the microcells and use technologies like light radio even to bring back some of the transmission back to a central site and virtualize and cloudify it.
On one hand, it's an offload. On the other hand, there is 65 different kind of device in the world equipped with Wi-Fi. You can't avoid it.
Right, so then you get into software-defined radio and
yes.
all that. So, okay, and Jacky, comments on network architecture evolution?
In fact, my view of it, it's really, as I mentioned earlier, the IT folks is always coming from the individual perspective, and the telco folks is always focusing on the application layers. Today, when we talk about QoS, it's all about application layers. So I'm controlling non-delay sensitive or mission critical, like web browsing, into lower priority, and then I'll construct my core network into, when I detect it's a video, I'll let it go first. So it's the idea of MPLS, right? Multi-layer labeling. sooner or later will have to adopt to a more individual aspect of the things. Say, for example, as a mobile user, I am traveling a lot, and every month I spend about $2,000–3,000 US with my mobile phone bill, roaming, everything add on top. In compare with a teenager in Hong Kong who is subscribing a $20 US unlimited data access plan. As a premium user or big spender and a teenager, we are sharing the same infrastructure, and then we are experiencing the same level of services. So from what I'm seeing is when we consider building out the infrastructure or QoS, we have to scrap what we have today and then considering individual quality of service. It's very difficult to accomplish, but it's doable because your identity on the network is always known, even on a fixed network environment. If I'm an enterprise, subscribing a broadband internet access, I should be able to provide a list of IP addresses that I believe it's our premium customers or our important partners in that regard, and then allow quality of service to be performed on that. I wanted my premium customer to access my corporate resources or website on a more faster fashion. I wanted to answer their phone call earlier. I wanted to differentiate the service with the end user. I wanted to let the consumer has a choice. If I'm willing to pay more, I should be able to get more from our network services provider or even carriers. So I think when we are moving to the next generation infrastructure, we should always consider that.
Yeah, and you're starting to see that being deployed now, right? So you've got both obviously higher bandwidth service capabilities for wireline broadband, and then you're starting to see sort of boost services for momentary higher bandwidth if I have an important file I want to download or whatever. So that seems like a good opportunity. Michael, you had a question.
Well, maybe just a little bit. Michael Haley with IBM. So just was struck a little bit by the difference between Mr. Andrew Kwok and Mr. Jacky Kwok. Yes, struck a little bit by the difference in perspective. It seemed that solutions being offered by Mr. Andrew Kwok had more of a telco flavor, and perhaps less of a recognition around consumer behavior. Both companies are clearly successful, but I was struck yesterday by Kara Swisher from Wall Street Journal, who pointed to the fact that consumers and behaviors are beginning to dominate. And I thought it was an interesting contrast that perhaps
Yeah,
Hutchison.
for the, just Kara's quote, she quoted a Disney executive, and it was basically consumers have taken control of the situation and they're not likely to give it back anytime soon.
Right, so solutions around sale of services, perhaps by Hutchison, and a more enterprise approach might run into more friction, could be successful, wildly successful, but I know myself, I will not, and IBM has, I think, nearly 60% of our professional employees are mobile. We will not, I predict, go back to a simple client device where everything is going to be dependent on the network. I think the behavior is set. Once the horse is out of the barn, so to speak, it's very hard to go back once you get smartphones and iPad
what's
behaviors.
the question specifically?
So I guess the question is, could you comment a little on that observation around consumer behavior starting to drive telco services as opposed to telcos attempting to offer more classic subscription services? Thank you.
So one of the belief, no matter myself or my company, is that you can't go against the market. Yeah, this is very clear, and this is our belief. So I think the only
We
only
say
thing.
go with the flow.
Yes, you can't go against the market force. So if the market is doing this in this way, we respect and salute to our customer. I think in the whole economies, no matter it's telecom or what, this is our golden belief because we run a lot of different services, even not telecom, port and container, infrastructure, properties and all this. This is our golden rules. So that's why, Mr. IBM, no need to worry, we'll serve you.
Okay.
By the way, my telephone number is, I'll give it to you later. Okay. But to answer your question, I think that there's no, maybe several years ago, there are some so-called conflict between the OTT, Telco 2.0, with the infrastructure-based carrier, in which it creates a false perception that, the traditional carriers actually go against the market whatsoever. It is not true. Okay. I honestly point out that basically, I think no one in the world can go against the market demand, except fashion. There's another story. We would like to serve the customer, and if you want to take control of this or that while we are evolving our device from in the future the feature phone to smartphone, and now from smartphone, the people are talking about dumb phone already, but still the control of the application and everything is absolutely in the hand of the customer. Where they want to put it, how they want to use it, and the telco is a supplier and a facilitator of the assets. So this is the fundamental. So as such, to answer the question is that we absolutely follow the market trend, but why that is a perception that the carrier is trying to hold back a little bit? It is not. It is because of the return of investment. It's imbalance. You put down $100, the customer pay $100 in the whole ecosystem. Maybe there's only $20 comes into the carrier's hand, especially for us, is a very heavy infrastructure-based investor. However, we are searching where those $80 went to. So we just would like to strike a better balance so that we can carry on the investment to serve the whole community, including your good self.
Well, to be blunt, you could say that consumers have, bigger eyes than wallets, right? We all do. In other words, we like the caviar, the lobster, and the champagne, but we don't really want to have to pay for it. And carriers seem to be squeezed in the middle because everyone wants infinite bandwidth everywhere all the time, but has a fixed budget for telecommunications expenses. And once you subtract out, there's a great analysis that basically shows you can only spend so much in this arena because there's the subsistence things that you need like housing and food, and so there's no opportunity for revenues to grow exponentially forever in real dollars. So any other questions, or did you have a comment, Jacky, on that?
Well, I think I agree with Andrew a lot because telecommunication is a capital-intensive industry where you have to first invest a great deal, and then someday two young guys at the garage invented smartphone apps and then stealing a lot of your revenue or your profit out of your intense investment. That must be addressed. I mean, although I have been saying we should let the consumer have the control over our behavior, but at the meantime, we must address the same thing. My philosophy really is to improve what we are offering right now and then win back the confidence of the consumer. People move away from the traditional service for a reason. In the past, in many area of the world, telecommunication was politically protected industry. They usually monopolies or licensed operators. So somehow some people have the feeling, especially on the consumer front, that they have been ripping off for so long, for so many years. I have spent so much money on my IDD. Skype come in and say you can do it for free. And then there are negative feeling developed from the consumer front or on the traditional telco. So,
well, you know, that's another interesting perspective on consumer behavior because, you know, if I look at my electric bill, it's actually much higher than my telecommunications bill. And yet, as a consumer, I'm like, well, wait, you're going to start metering usage? Meanwhile, I've paid for, 50 years for, metered electricity usage. Nobody thinks twice about it. Yes, if I turn my microwave on, I'm going to have to pay another few cents for that. But it's somehow transparent as opposed to this, everyone thinks, telecommunications is a God-given right? And it's actually the ITU is pursuing the whole, broadband is a human right. Nobody says electricity is or water is, and we pay gladly for, metered services.
Yeah.
So, okay, another question from the audience in this highly interactive executive insight roundtable. I'm going to start calling on people that I know if you don't start asking questions. Tony.
Tony, you go.
The question is, I think both executives actually explained quite clearly the opportunities within the telco space in the face of these OTT players and how to handle them and stuff. But that actually generates a lot of traffic on the network. And given the historical pricing models that the telcos have adopted since, there's only so much upside you can actually charge for all this extra traffic coming onto your network. So, from that perspective, I mean, how difficult will it be to actually increase price to actually accommodate your return on that extra traffic, given in the face of these OTT players? Like, they're dumping traffic on your network, but then, can you actually recoup any investment?
Okay, so thanks, Tony. Basically, I think it's a following up of this, some of the discussions that we have had just now. I think instead of just to increase the price like incumbents or I'm the king or whatsoever, no. I think whoever thinks in this way, they will be squeezed out from the market. As I mentioned, that the belief of the market force is our golden rules, and it is also a golden rules of a lot of carriers. I've met with some of the executives who is heavily investing in the network. We all feel the same. I give one physical example. Instead of talking about this, our belief or whatsoever, instead of increasing the price, we are seeking for opportunity to cooperate with the so-called OTT player. I don't want to use this name. Always we want to call them application provider, application operators, okay? We mentioned about WhatsApp. If you take a look at some news announcement, last year in around September, so actually we met with, I also personally met with the founder of the WhatsApp, Mr. Conmore, okay, who is from California. Who lives in California, sorry, who is from the Russia, okay? So we came up with a business model, which is totally proved that we would like to involve, contribute, and follow the market force, in which the WhatsApp, as announced last year with us, that their application will be riding on our special data roaming packages around the world. And the ultimate result is we can stimulate the roaming data traffic demand. We can charge more from the customer, not to rip off from them. Instead of increasing price or whatsoever, we give them a better application, a better usage. So to stimulate the traffic, and WhatsApp also got the benefit of getting a better network performance, getting a more convenience way to reach the customer. We both are happy.
So it's a win-win rather than a bad.
Absolutely. We both are happy. So this is riding on our business model that started from 3 years ago when we create a participated and created a mobile alliance in Asia called Connexus, which consists of 360 million customer base. We are the first one who launched out unlimited data roaming plan for our roamer to avoid the bill shock. So we charge them less than 20 US when they travel in those countries that we covered with our member or whatsoever. No matter how much data you use, this is the top. This is the
So you have
cap.
bilateral agreements with those
Yeah.
carriers in those
Other than
countries.
bilateral is alliance agreement and all this. So we are doing all this to prove and show to the market that we are wholeheartedly, I would like to further invest, but however, let's cooperate and let's get the mutual benefit. Tony, did I answer the question? Sort of, huh? Okay. So I want to skip away from the question that the carriers only means is to increase the price. No, it's not like that.
Jacky, did you want to add or?
Well, I think it's a very clever example that roaming scenario of collaboration with WhatsApp. It's really some of the OTT application, we can never retrieve any money back from them. It's because they managed to cleverly find a hole or weakness in our current charging model. So some of them you could collaborate with them. Some OTT or some players that we observe, their own business model does not last long because they're not charging for a penny, and then they are offering free service and free lunch and a couple scoop of Haagen-Dazs ice cream. No, seriously, there are a big OTT player in Hong Kong. If you download their app and register yourself into it, you will receive a coupon for 2 scoops of Haagen-Dazs ice cream.
Well, we've seen this model before, right? I mean, this was the dot-com bubble bursting because, you know, it's easy to be a new entrant. It was, you know, the largest transfer of wealth from venture capitalists to basically lawyers and, you know, others, in the sense that, you know, it's easy to come up with an idea for a new free app, and the business plan always says, you know, we're going to gain eyeballs, they're going to be sticky, and then we're going to convert to fee. And inevitably what happens is that's the story, and then in that free to fee conversion, all of a sudden you find consumers revolt. There's, you know, plenty of substitutes, and so people move on to the next big thing. So it's that same story over and over again without anyone actually, you know, monetizing. So basically they're destroying the industry structure without actually creating any sustainable revenue model instead. So that seems to be the real challenge. But I guess the question is around, you know, monetizing the over-the-top providers. To be a little bit of a pain in the neck for a second, if you know, I have 2 parties to a transaction, and let's take, for example, selling a home, right? You know, there's buyer's agents, there's seller's agents. One way or another, the realtors get paid, right? Whether or not you have, in some case, you know, the seller is paying the commission or the buyer is paying the commission. So one way or another, the realtor gets paid. So in the telecommunications context, given that consumers are paying for access, is it even necessary to charge over-the-top players for anything, in the sense that they're creating the services that ultimately are driving the consumer demand, which in turn is driving their need to pay the, you know, $60, $70, $80, $100, $120, whatever it may be per month for that access? So why is it so essential that over-the-top players pay?
Me?
Whoever. Somebody from the audience.
I think it's really gone back to the earlier comment of Andrew. When we invested the infrastructure, we kind of looking at our revenue profile and say, look, we used to get $100, but how come today we only got 20? And then where did the $80 go? And then we start looking at, oh, it went into somebody who is charging nothing. So the savings is in fact all passed on to our end user consumers. I think that's fine. I mean, at the end of the day, I agree with Joe that the fact that it is not necessary the OTT payer has to pay the network charges. As people becomes more eager on interactive services, if you ask yourself the amount of time you watch television every day in compare with the past 10 years, you will find yourself, I don't really watch TV. I probably watch 5 minutes a week. And then these should attract alternative players, advertiser or other industry who is willing to afford the bandwidth or the infrastructure charges from the telco industry. So sooner or later, we should be working more on that side of it. But before we can capitalize or monetize on that area, we have to accomplish the true quality of service I said earlier. It's individual quality of service. Then we will be able to perform location-based service, as you said, target marketing, things like this. It would open up a whole new revenue stream instead of crying over the spilled milk, as what a lot of the players today, when we start hating some of the OTT players.
Okay. Maybe one last question before we move to wrap up. Yes, sir.
The projection over the next few years in the mobile space, the mobile network space, with the technology, the cell spacing required, I assume, particularly for Hutch, that you've got a stepped increase in network investment because of cell spacing, the number of hardwares, backhaul that you have to put in place. And that's in an environment that you were saying before that margins are being squeezed and return on investment of capital outlay is under a lot of pressure in your business case. So there seems to be, from my observation, that in the next few years there's going to have to be a stepped increase, not business as usual, stepped increase because of the cell spacing required for the bandwidths required, and just physics, and how you're going to handle that stepped increase in investment in an environment of likelihood of poor return on investment.
Okay. So thanks for the question. We are optimistic, okay? The reason behind is that I think there's two main reasons for that. I cannot say on behalf of the other mobile operator, okay? So, but we see that the situation is that throughout this past 12 years of very speedy internet evolution, from an infant stage now into a more mature stage, we see a big changes is the lifestyle of the people has changed. It's really changed. In the past, I still remember 15 years ago, when I get a laptop, when I'm riding on airplane, the people will look at me, oh, laptop? so now who doesn't have a laptop or special device? The lifestyle.
Well, actually, now again, when you have a laptop, they look at you funny.
Yes.
Right? It used to be because nobody
laptop.
else had one. Now it's because everyone has a tablet. So.
Yeah, tablets or a mini iPad or
Right.
whatsoever.
Okay.
So the lifestyle has changed dramatically. So this is a good sign. The reason behind is that they need more speedy transmission. They need more bandwidth. They want to use more application. These are all good for the telecom industry. Okay, we leave the OTT things behind a little bit because it is another issue. We're talking about the even distribution of investment or whatsoever. So we are optimistic because we see and we observe the lifestyle has changed. So nowadays the people are acting differently from the older generation. They adopted it to electronic lifestyle, in which telecommunication is a promising industry that you should keep on investing. Second, owing to some of the discussion that we have had, we also see that the ecosystem recognize if the carrier, because of the investment, is not up to a reasonable standard, they will stop investing, then the whole ecosystem will break down. No one will survive. So as such, there is a lot of other opportunity that we can cooperate with the application provider to get money. And obviously, I do not want to voice out the name of those player who superficially seems, oh, they are against the operator. No, we are talking. We are really talking how to encourage each other, how to more evenly distribute a little bit, so that everyone will have the fair share. So this is why we are keep on still investing with this kind of belief of the lifestyle change and also a more friendly environment for the investor.
So I'd like to sell the opportunity to ask a question for the last question, which is, you've got two world leaders here in this industry. It's a rare opportunity to ask them whatever you want to know, and then after that, they're going to jet off to do another $1 billion deal somewhere. So you got one last opportunity, and then we're going to wrap up. Okay. Well, I would just say that from my own perspective, what you just said and kind of the theme of this for me was a real eye-opener, because I've sort of always viewed it as a win-lose or lose-win type of battle, and what you're saying is very optimistic around the opportunity for collaboration to make things better for everyone in the ecosystem, including over-the-top players, operators, and consumers/businesses. So maybe since this is the Global Carrier Outlook session, as a closing question, then we'll wrap. What do you see happening over the next 5 years? And you said that you're pretty optimistic. So my question was going to be, are we going to be opening champagne or opening the bottle of whiskey to drown our sorrows? So when we look back over the next 5 years, what is it? Major disruptions, trends that you see coming to fruition?
If I would, okay, that's not fair.
Please.
I think in this coming 5 years, same as or even a more compared to the past, okay, the evolution will even speed up. Some will survive, some will fail in this coming 5 years of time. And the beauty selection process will become shorter. Whoever did the right job will win, of course. Whoever did something wrong, they will lose out. And I think the whole process surrounding what we believe, how do you invest, which area you invest, those are the challenges. So I see that there will be a lot of merger and acquisition. The space will be divided into IT, OTT, and carrier, so-called traditional carrier. However, having said that, that is one space that I would like to urge the industrial colleague to consider is something in between the three. Traditional carrier, so-called OTT, and also the IT. There are some space there. So that's why we are also launching out our VoIP apps, in which is a combination of and bridge up of this.
So an over-the-top app, in effect.
Yep.
So,
I want to be the over-the-top, over-the-top.
Exactly. So just as a sub-footnote question to the final wrap-up question, what about from a cultural perspective? So mergers and acquisitions could mean, basically rolling up telco assets or spectrum assets, but it could also mean moving into these adjacent businesses, sort of at the interstices of the Venn diagram there. What do you see as a cultural requirement if telcos move more into this arena where you've got accelerated innovation, you need the ability to develop software, you need to really understand how to foster a application developer ecosystem, what are you doing from a cultural shift perspective? And then I'll go back to the final question for you. So this is a sub-question to you before I move back to the whole final question. I know it's a convoluted process here, but since you brought it up that...
I'll do cooperation. Frankly speaking, I'll do cooperation. The answer, the short answer for all this is, I'll open up the network. I'll tell the people, welcome. Please come and do business. I will not be the one who say you'll be successful or fail. The market will say it. but I will open up my network for you to put on top of it, cooperate with me, and will you be fail or success, it will be the market selection.
So create an open platform and let 1,000
Absolutely.
flowers bloom.
As Joe, sorry about that. So we are not paid, as you know that in this forum. So whoever want to do business with Hutchison, please come. No free lunch, huh?
Okay.
Welcome. Yeah.
Jacky, to go back to the final question, what do you see in the next 5 years, and are you optimistic or pessimistic or somewhere in between?
I think,
Cautiously optimistic.
I think I really don't know because I'm not holding a crystal ball. There are certain things that I could be certain is that if we cling on to the traditional model of charging our customers or the bandwidth charging or cling on to the traditional model, we will be suffering for the next 5 years. But unfortunately, we must be dealing with that side of I call them burden today because we must continue to invest on the infrastructure because it is for the future of the people. So it will, on one side, you're carrying a huge burden to survive, to maintain, or to minimize your loss, not to mention about making a double-digit growth on every year. On the other side of it, for the next 5 years, you must be taking a very bold approach, allocating certain amount of your corporate resources on engaging into different business model, continue your investment on R&D. As I said earlier, the individual-based QoS has to be done. So the next 5 years challenge is really you have both of your hands full, and both of your hands are carrying a very difficult task. It's not easy to create or generate something new. At the meantime, you're struggling with your current model. So,
Okay. Well, thank you guys for such a great set of insights. Really appreciate your time today. Thank you.
Thank you.
thank you, Joe.
Thanks, Joe.
Okay.
Yeah, very good session.
Thanks. And we finished right on time, too. How amazing is that?